Turn me up a little bit, or just a little bit more. I got a message that I want to send across the world. Listen, baby.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I wanted to talk about something that happened recently, where I invited one of my old mentors on to be interviewed, and it had been a while since we had spoken, and I was very honest at the beginning of that conversation, and I said, you know, the reason why it had been so long since we'd spoken is because when I reached out to you, I wanted to feel a level of pride in what I had done since we last were regularly interacting. You know, I wanted to validate the potential that you saw in me before I felt comfortable interacting with you again. And to which she said, you know, there was definitely no need to do that, and certainly no need to apologize. But it was such a real revelation and indictment and feeling. It was a real feeling that I had and carried for a long time, and still do carry in other respects. Like, just because I recognize it in this one instance doesn't mean that it's not at play in other areas with respect to other relationships. But that need for my pride to be protected, even in situations where people actively might be trying to help me or might have my best interests at heart, right? It was a funny, I remember talking to my mother years ago. She was going to the doctor, and I said, make sure you tell the doctor everything that's going on, because I know how prideful she is, and thinking about how crazy it is to go to the doctor and not be honest when the doctor is there to help keep you healthy and potentially save your life. Why would you not be honest with them about everything that's going on? I'm also not always 100% honest. How much you working out? What you eating? Like, I'm also not 100% honest with the doctor, right? So these instances abound everywhere where we feel the need to protect our egos, and to such an extent to spite people that might be wanting to help. And in the instance with the doctor, the cost could be them missing some advice that could be helpful to you. But the cost in this instance is the nature of that relationship, because I stood in the way of how that relationship could have developed and grown and strengthened. You know, it's great that we were able to connect in this moment. So obviously the relationship didn't atrophy to the point where that wasn't possible, but it could have. It certainly has. In other instances, in other relationships just go cold because, you know, for whatever reason, I feel ashamed. I don't want to reach out. I don't want them to see my house. I don't want them to, you know, whatever the case may be. You know, whatever I don't want them to see my car, whatever the case may be, where you are standing in the way of a growing natural evolution of a relationship. And I would also say, in some respects, you're also calling the person a liar. Like when they say they care about you, when they say they want your best interest, you're also calling the person a liar. Because you're not actively acting on believing the things that they're saying, right? Because if you truly took what they're saying about how they feel about you to heart, none of these things would matter. But all too often, at least in my lifetime, all too often, those kinds of comments about, you know, I'm here to help and I love you, whatever the case may be, right? Friends, family, whatever the case may be. I don't act as if those things are true. And the most costly one to me was actually with my own dad, because my dad was a guy's guy. You know, he liked beer and football and running the streets. That's what he liked to do. Good dad, good guy. Did not take it away from that. But those were the things that he liked to do. And I knew that those were the things. In my mind, my dad's measure of a man was based on athletic achievements, and it was based on women. Those were the things that it seemed like he valued and took pride in other people. So those were the areas where I felt like I could impress him. Could impress him. You know, if I were a different person. Me being who I am, those were not the areas. Those were not, it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And after he passed, there were so many of his friends who kept telling me how proud of me he was, and how you were his joy, and they were just effusive in their praise of me, but also of how he felt about me. And those things weren't completely new or foreign to me. I'd heard them before. I don't know that I ever really internalized them, though. And it wasn't until after he passed that I realized I really didn't, because during most of his life, I walked around with some shame for not being a different person, for not being the person that I felt like could impress him in these ways. Even as an adult, at 30, 35 years old, as he's actively telling me, because he would tell me these things. This wasn't a situation where these things were unspoken. He would tell me how proud of me he was, but I wasn't hearing that. I didn't internalize that. And I broke down after he passed at the realization that I missed the opportunity to really share and grow our relationship together with my heart fully open, because on some level I felt judged and I felt shame. And that judgment and that shame was, I mean, it's not like we didn't interact or didn't do, no, we did, but I felt like the relationship wasn't what it could have been if I really listened and internalized those things. You know, my own ego and pride got in the way. And that's not even to say that I was even right. I clearly wasn't right, actually. Let me correct that. I clearly was incorrect. I don't think my dad would change a single thing about my life if he's looking down and making a call on what he wants for his son. I don't think he would change not one thing. But I thought it was all these other things that, you know, how he would. Anyway, I just thought I would share that because I feel like, you know, I share that as a challenge to myself, but I also share that as a way for, you know, 'cause I'm certain I'm not the only one whose ego has gotten in the way of love, quite frankly. My ego got in the way of love.
I got a message that I want to send across the world. Listen.